So I need to tell you two things before I start. First of all, the presentation is not my presentation. It's a presentation of my UNU colleague, Matthias Gaschhagen, who was planning to come here, but who is on an extended trip in Africa, and I promised him to have this presentation. I may not be able to go into all of the details, depending on how detailed your questions are, but I'm still confident that I can give you an overview on the main topics. The second is that when comparing to the last session, I will not go nearly as close to communities as we have been discussing this afternoon, but these are some thoughts on global patterns of risk development, which I think are important as well in order to be equipped to deal with future risk situations. So, sorry? The big one. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So just the general setting, I think we have seen many of these figures all under, so to say, the point of view that there are no dangerous landscape. It's a question of interaction. So we are talking about environmental and climatic change in connection with urbanization and socio-economic change. Much of what I will say is based on the World Risk Report we have published the last 6 years, where we have disaggregated risks into 4 domains. First is the exposition and the susceptibility, which is normally done in risk analysis, but the third and the fourth component, the coping capacity, namely the question on how well we can cope with ongoing hazard processes, the question if you should be rescued, if you need health care, do you get this health care or not? And the fourth one, the adaptive capacities, the question in a nutshell, if you have the same flooding in 10 years from now, did you improve the situation, or are you suffering from exactly the same problems again? So the parts on the left is, so to say, the biophysical part, and the part of on the right we are talking on socio-economic part of risks. And just to give you a kind of an idea in a nutshell, in many parts of the world, or in many local situations, it is more the physical part which gives the main contribution to the risks, and in other parts it's the components on the left. So we have a complex situation. This is the type of maps we are making. Of course, red is bad and green is good, and we are sometimes asked, why are you assigning a single number to a country like Russia? Of course, we are not. We are making subnational analysis, but still we need to see that while the physical, the meteorological situation, for example, may of course strongly vary across a country, they have the same government. So part of these more socio-political factors of risk may really be the same throughout the country. So this is just an example. You can download all these risks. We have done in 2014. We have paid a special attention on the urban aspects of risks. This is just an extract here. You see again a whole group of red cities, of green cities. This is of course based on a much more detailed analysis. You see a whole different set of parameters we have looked into. I won't go into the details in the interest of time, but this you all see in this report. I would just like to go shortly address two particular topics and particular detail. One is relating to the first talk I think we have heard from Hannes Taubenböck on morphological aspects of the city. The analysis my colleagues have done show that the future urban areas or the future area city will cover, which will grow much more than just proportionally to the number of people living in there for various reasons. First of all, we have, of course, at most cities we have compact, densely populated cities. Informal settlements are less densely populated, although the density of houses may be very dense. And then they're extending into regions which are just not amenable to housing. I mean, we have seen examples of Medellin. So cities will grow much faster in area than they have done so far. The second aspect is concerning the size of the city. A very large part of the population, of the urban population, doesn't live in mega cities, but in small and medium-sized cities. If you add them up, this is in the left figure, on the left part, it's cities, if you can't read it, of less than 500,000 people. It will, as you see, in 2025 or in future, this will homogenize a bit because the smaller cities get larger, so we will not have this kind of distinct picture. But an analysis of these socio-economic conditions, and I will not go into the detail, I will rather tell you what the message of all these data are that we're not so much worried about the risk development in megacities, but in strongly growing medium-sized cities. So it's not so much the size of the cities, but the rate of growth that plays a big role, because particularly in just emerging cities, in small cities, you often don't have the institutional strength, and the institutional structures just don't have the ability to follow the needs connected to a strong influx of people. So we would argue also to take a lot of care in future, not just about the big, but also of the small and medium cities. Much of these data and insights my colleagues have gained from the project TRUC, or TRUC, depending on how you pronounce it. It has been an EU project. You can also see it on the internet. Now, where are we going from here in our research? Much of what I have told you is just, so to say, recording and monitoring, quantifying of present and past development. And we would like to try to see if we can not forecast risks, but kind of map development pathways of future risk evolutions. This is actually interesting for practice. The donors, the main partners in the World Risk Report have been humanitarian aid organizations who approached us originally with the question on how do we in future try to think about allocating in our money. I mean, where and for what. This has been at the origin of this risk analysis. How much do I still have? I need just 2 minutes, I think. So when you're thinking about how to extrapolate possible risk patterns along these very diverse four sectors like exposition and then to adaptation capacity, what is often done is that just the physical, so to say, the climatic, for example, the climatic or meteorological factors are extended, and then it's easy to do a risk extrapolation. But it is often done under the assumption that the society and socio-economics stays the same, and that's probably not the case. It will vary as much as the climate. And the question on how you try to start to quantify, even conceptually, these socio-economic pathways is, of course, a kind of science for itself. And one of the examples I'm just going to show you, there has been done a considerable amount of work for it. is the so-called SSPs. You'll find this in the reference of O'Neill. There is many more papers meanwhile. The SSP are shared socio-economic pathways. And this is a kind of one way to structure these, to look at these possible different socio-economic pathways. This is a look from the climate perspective. There is two big things you are thinking in the climate negotiations. Coco, working at UNFCCC, knows this very well. People are talking about mitigation, about trying to reduce the emission, and about adaptation. As far as you can't try, as far as you don't manage to reduce the emissions, and you will have consequences, how to adapt to them. And these socio-economic pathways basically tell us on how good we are in these two dimensions. So at the left lower, you have the kind of most romantic scenarios, sustainability, where you can assume that the climate negotiations will be successful along both domains. And on the right upper edge is the most rough scenarios, where you where the negotiations would fail, where we have a kind of what the authors call deglobalization, in a very negative sense, that things go apart inside countries and globally. And the question is then, how would these indicators we have looked at in our world risk scenario analysis, how would they evolve? And I can't give you the answer because we are right at the beginning, so this was just to try to tell you on where we want to go. I just give you the simplest or one of the simplest curves the authors of this SSP have already looked at. This is the possible development of the world population for these different scenarios, but this is of course just one of very many. And moreover, I would also like to emphasize that the look from the climate corner, so to say, from these possible 5 scenarios from the climate side is not the only one. You can look at it. So there are north-south perspectives and many others, I think. So this is a kind of a start into new work. We have decided not to further to continue to publish the World Risk Index, but coming next year with a new format, which has a working title we call World Risk Futures. Some tell us this is, with respect to communication, it's not the best way to call it, but I think we'll find a way. So I will stop here and hope that I have not exceeded the time. Thank you very much.